like Mehika said, I started 3-1 Educational Foundation a few years ago. So you can imagine how happy I was when I was called to speak at 4. It just fits and makes sense. I'm actually going to speak a little bit about, not so much about 3-1, I'll give you a little bit of an idea of what we do. When I started it 3 years ago, the point was to set up a school for children from slum backgrounds, but not in a way that we're doing charity for them, but start with the point of, within the constraints of that environment, how do we set up one of the best schools in that community, then eventually in the city, and hopefully in the country, and then eventually in the world. Is it on? Okay, so that was the aim of starting 3-1, but I'm not going to speak about 3-1. I'm going to speak about something we're very interested at 3-1 about. And it's actually about, like Mihika said, over the last 30, 40 years, we've made incredible progress in understanding human behavior, human psychology, and just how we function and how the environment we function affects us. And it's something we're very interested in as educators, as team members, as colleagues. And it's something that is, it's not something that I'm an expert at. I want to put that out very quickly, but it's something that I'm very, very interested at. That's me with one of our kids at the school. So it's something we're very interested in understanding, and that's what I'm going to present about. I'm going to present 3 big ideas that we've found of a lot of use in these theories, and hopefully will be of interest to you. So what I'm going to do in this talk is essentially 2 things. One is I want to hopefully get you to buy into this idea, which is here, that we are not the rational decision makers that we think we are. Now there's a lot of evidence for that, and that's what I'm going to try and present and hopefully get you to buy in that. And the second is, if I can generate enough interest, hopefully get you to a place where you want to know more about all of this stuff and how you can apply it in your life. So with that, let's start with the first thing. Okay? Here's a very simple chart, right? This is percentage of people as they've agreed for organ donation. Some of you might have seen this before. You can see the percentages vary a lot. On the bottom is the countries across the world, right? The percentages are very different. The countries, if you see, are very similar. They're all rich, high levels of education, sort of affluent, similar levels of political, social systems. The question is, why are the percentages so different? Take a few seconds to think about it. Maybe bounce ideas with someone sitting next to you. Why is it so different? When people are asked about this, they give reasons from, it could be religion, it could be practice, a lot of these different things, right? What's funny is the reason for it. And the reason is what the form looked like when it was given to people to approve. So the countries which have very low percentages, the default option, it was an opt-in system. There was a checkbox and it said, check if you want to donate your organs. They left it blank. In the countries which have a very high percentage, it was an opt-out system. It said, check this box if you do not want to donate your organs. Most people chose the default option. Now, we might say, that shows us how lazy human beings are, but it's actually quite the opposite of it, right? It's such an emotional decision. What will happen to our bodies after we're gone? And because of that, it overwhelms us in ways that we just choose the default option. And that's why, by that simple form of is it opt-in or opt-out, it completely changes what the country does in terms of organ donation. And that's the first idea, right? It's often the presentation of choice and the choices which is as important as the choices themselves. It's not something that we really want to believe about ourselves, but we get influenced as much by the presentation of the choices as we get influenced by the actual choice itself. Right? And this is something that psychologists have really learned over the last 20, 30 years about. We don't really have very good intuition about why we make the decisions. So we think we do, but we don't. Let me show you a few more examples, right? A very common scenario. You're surfing on the net and something pops up, right? Right? Now, I have wanted to get that bikini body for some time, but maybe not in the middle of the stock, right? So I want to choose no. But the options, One of the options is big, bold, massive color, has an arrow. The other option is very small in print, is in the background, almost the same color as the background. In our hurry or in our impatience, many of us will choose the option which they want us to choose and go with that. It is the presentation of the choices which often has a big, big impact on how we choose it. And it's not just sneaky marketeers who do this, right? A lot of other people do it, including politicians. Do you agree with the reunification of Austria with the German Reich as enacted on March 13, 1938, and do you vote for the party of our leader Adolf Hitler? Yes or no? Look at the sizes of the words. But the point is, this is who we are, right? We get influenced by this. Now, this can be used for evil, or it can be used for good. So Google, for example, cares a lot about the health of its employees. And it used this fact, this idea, to influence that. So how do they do it? If you go to a Google cafeteria, the unhealthy candies and snacks are put in opaque jars with nutrition labels clearly there, and the healthy stuff is put in transparent jars right in front. If you go to the fridge, you will find that the cola is right behind in translucent jars, whereas water is right in front in transparent bottles. What they found is if water is the first thing that people see, they consume it 40% more than they would normally. Often, the presentation of choices is as important as the choices themselves. Right? That's my first idea. Okay. Let's move on to the next one. Now, given that I'm an educator, I needed to bring kids in here, so I'll bring them here. Now, what is one thing that parents often do with children but do not like to admit it? Given there are some parents here, I would like to know their secret opinion on this, is parents often bribe them. Right? If you do this, you will get this. Right? So let's see what the research tells us about this. A few decades ago, there was this very famous research done where researchers wanted to see the effect of rewards on children and how it motivates them. So they took a sample of preschoolers who loved to draw and set up this little experiment. With 1/3 of the children, they said, okay, you come here, you draw, and there was no reward to be given. With the second set, they said, if you draw, we will give you a reward. It's a beautiful certificate, we will give you this. And with the other third, they said, you know, there's no expectation of reward. The children didn't know, and the reward came as a surprise at the end. Right? So no reward, guaranteed reward, and surprise reward. They put them in a room, gave them this whole thing, and then after a few days started observing what happened when the whole thing went away. Would the children draw as much? Would they draw less? Would they draw more? And they put a report of the findings. Now, we are all used to rewards in home, school, workplace, right? The findings are pretty interesting. The rewards did have an influence, but not what we would have expected. So the children who got no reward were pretty much drawing the same amount. The children who got a surprise reward actually started drawing a little bit more, but the children who had got a guaranteed or an expected reward just refused to draw. What happened? Right? To understand what happened, we need to look at the whole concept of intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Right? Most people here are familiar with the concept. Intrinsic motivation is when you're doing something because of the joy it gives you. Extrinsic is when you're doing it for something that you'll get at the end of it. All the children started as intrinsically motivated about drawing. We gave them a reward, and we made it extrinsic, and we were expecting that the reward would get them to draw more. Paradoxically, it had the exact opposite effect. And that's my second idea that I want to share, which is rewards do influence us, but not always in the intended ways. And often, we make big mistakes when we introduce rewards without understanding the effect they're going to have on us. A very famous experiment done again a few years ago was these researchers who came to Madurai, actually, 4 economists from around the world came to Madurai, and they said, let's see how will rewards influence cognitive tasks, and how will that happen? So they they came here and they offered different kinds of tasks which required creativity, problem solving, concentration, and they gave 3 sets of rewards. If you met your performance targets, one group would get something which is worth 2 weeks of salary, the other group would get something like a month, and the third group would get something like 2 months. And they said they set up these different tasks, and they said, we'll give you these rewards if you meet your targets. So what happened? The people who were getting 2 weeks of salary or a month of salary pretty much did the same. There was no real difference in how much they were able to meet the tasks. What was interesting was the people who were going to get 2 months of salary as a reward did actually significantly worse. And that's what it keeps circling back to, right? It's for tasks which require intrinsic motivation, creativity, problem solving, rewards often have the opposite benefit of what we intend them to do. And the really scary part of this is if you study what the brain looks like when it gets a financial reward, and if you study what it looks like when it's high on cocaine, it looks exactly the same. It's a really scary thing. Rewards do influence us, but not always in the intended ways, right? That's my second idea, right? So we've done 2 till now. I'm a teacher, so I'm going to check. What was the first one? How the choices get presented to us, right? This is the second one. Let me quickly jump to my third one and close with that. Now, for many years in education, we've believed that the 2 strongest indicators in a child's life are first is how intelligent is the child, and second, that to get the child motivated, we need to keep praising them. Now, that theory has been under attack for a lot of years, and a lot of credit goes to actually this lady called Carol Dweck, who came up with a counter to this. And her point was that when we praise children for intelligence or ability, we actually do them long-term harm and also produce many behaviors in them which are very detrimental. In a very famous example, research, what they did was they took a group of 5th graders and they gave them a number of different tasks. When they finished the tasks, half of them were praised for their intelligence. You're very intelligent, you're so smart, that was amazing, you're brilliant. And the other half were praised for their effort. You worked really hard, that was very tough, but you kept persevering, that was very hard work of you, right? They kept praising. And then once they're done, they tested the mindset of what the children believed about intelligence. So they asked them questions like, do you think intelligence is fixed, or do you think it changes and we can affect it? How would you define intelligence? The children who had gotten intelligence-based feedback almost always believed that intelligence was fixed, you couldn't change it, there's nothing you can do about it. Whereas the other group believed that intelligence was based on your knowledge and skills, you could affect it, you could improve it. And that's really the landmark thing which came out, which was when children got ability-based feedback, they developed what was called a fixed mindset. That they believed this is how it was, you were born with it, you couldn't do anything with it. But when children got feedback for their effort, they developed what was called the growth mindset. That they could believe that their intelligence was malleable and through effort, they could actually improve it. And which is what brings us to our third idea, which is the right kind of praise motivates us, and the wrong kind of praise can actually create self-defeating behaviors. What kind of behaviors? Those same kids, then when they were given harder problems and given the option of choose an easy problem or a hard problem, the ones who had the fixed mindset, who had gotten the intelligence-based feedback, almost always chose the easy problem. Because they were supposed to be intelligent, they didn't want to take a risk of not seeming so. Whereas the others almost always chose the harder problem because they said, I'll get to learn something from it. Then when they were anyways given the harder problems, the fixed mindset children, when they struggled, very quickly lost confidence and motivation and gave up. Whereas the others kept persevering and moving forward. What was surprising was when they were again given the easier problems back again, the fixed mindset children had lost so much of their confidence that actually their performance, even on the easy problems, dipped massively. Whereas the other students who had got the growth mindset kept maintaining. What's the saddest thing in this is at the end of the exercise, when they were asked to report their scores, the children who had got the intelligence-based feedback, the fixed mindset, who had this fixed mindset, were 4 times more likely to lie about their scores. their entire belief in the world was wrapped around their ego and their intelligence, and if anything disturbed that, they're willing to even lie their way out of it. And that's the thing. The right kind of praise for children, for us, for everyone motivates us, and the wrong kind can create self-defeating behaviors. This is part of many things that we've learned over the last 40, 50 years. We apply them a lot in our school, in our organization, and I wanted to share just because they influence so much of our lives, right? I'd said my objective was to just get you interested, and these are three big ideas. The presentation of choices, how rewards influence us, and the right kind of praise and the wrong kind of praise. It affects us as individuals, as team members, as teachers, as parents, as students, and has a profound effect on the way we interact with the world and what we believe ourselves. I'm going to hang out after the talk, and I would love to share more books you can read, more things you can look about. It's given us a lot of perspective about what we do, and I hope I've managed to create some interest for you to go and look this up again. Okay, thank you.